So I don't actually know if you guys remember this video, but I thought it was actually really important to revisit given the events that occurred a couple of days ago with the storming of the U.S. Capitol building by insane Trump rioters and Trump supporters. And so this was a video posted on The Hill. It's Crystal Ball. And the title reads, Crystal Ball, will liberals ever admit how wrong they were about Trump? And essentially the sort of thesis of this video that's being done by Crystal Ball is, I was promised a coup, it never happened, the media is doing all this scare tactics about a potential coup or trying to steal Joe Biden's win. It was absolutely bizarre because Trump was saying stop the count, he was trying to overturn the results in legal battles, disenfranchising potentially millions of voters, trying to steal the election. And for some reason, Crystal Ball's brain bizarrely thought, hey, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to write a script for an entire segment, a 5-minute long rant, about how Donald Trump's threats are they're very overplayed. I'm going to be charitable and say that she was saying that, all the potential threats that people are thinking about Trump doing are completely overplayed. It was a really, really bizarre segment, and she was saying, I was promised a coup. And so I think it's important to revisit this segment just because of how insane what she said was and how wrong it was. I mean, when exactly was this posted? November 10th, 2020. So we are now on January 8th, so it's been like just 2 months. It's been less than 60 days, okay? So I'm going to play this for you guys, and then we're going to come back and talk about it.
All right, Krystal, what's on your radar?
Well, folks, not sure what happened here this past week, but I am sorely disappointed. I mean, I have been promised a fascist authoritarian coup directed by Vladimir Putin himself for 4 years now, and I'm getting a little impatient waiting to see how it all goes down. In fact, I was told this election wouldn't even happen because Trump would cancel it or at least postpone it indefinitely. I was told that an elaborate plot was being hatched with scary words like disinformation and misinformation and deep fakes to rob poor innocent Joe Biden of his rightful victory. I was informed in no uncertain terms that Attorney General Bill Barr had masterminded a devious plot to confiscate ballot boxes, or that Trump would force the FDA to inject all Democrats with toxic hydroxychloroquine or something. It's hard to see how this, a hastily arranged presser in the parking lot of Four Seasons Landscaping, fits into their evil genius plan. Sure, Trump is launching legal challenges and refusing to concede, but even state media outlet Fox News doesn't really seem to have their heart in the game.
We want every legal vote to be counted, and we want every illegal vote to be...
Whoa. I just think we have to be very clear. She's charging, the other side is welcoming fraud and welcoming illegal voting. Unless she has more details to back that up, I can't in good countenance continue showing you this. I want to make sure that maybe they do have something to back that up, but that's an explosive charge to make, that the other side is effectively rigging and cheating. If she does bring proof of that, of course, we'll take you back. So far, she has started saying right at the outset, welcoming fraud, welcoming illegal voting. Not so fast.
One of the greatest lies of the Trump era was that this dude was remotely up to the task of being some Hitlerian figure. Now here we stand with every network, including Fox News, having called the race for Biden. And how has our orange Mussolini reacted? By doing what he always does, saying a bunch of ridiculous crap, sending out a bunch of stupid tweets, and not a whole heck of a lot else. It turns out that Matt Taibbi was exactly right when he wrote this. The words we see slapped on Trump most often, like fascist and authoritarian, nowhere near describe what he really is, and I don't mean that as a compliment. It's been proven across 4 years that Trump lacks the attention span or ambition required to implement a truly dictatorial regime. He might not have a moral problem with the idea, but 2 minutes into the plan, he'd leave the room, phone in hand, to throw on a robe and watch himself on Fox and Friends over a cheeseburger. There's no constitutional crisis coming with dueling sets of electors, let alone some military-backed coup in which Trump attempts to stay in the White House beyond his term. The latest terrors gripping resistance liberals are rather revealing, and frankly, just how pathetic they are. We're supposed to be deeply concerned for the future of democracy because Trump fired the former Raytheon lobbyist who was running the Department of Defense. The horrors. And he may fire the former George W. Bush admin guy who's running the FBI. Outrageous. My favorite, though, is that all of their elaborate fascist coup plots have actually collapsed down to this: Some GSA Trump appointee is refusing to sign a letter acknowledging Biden's election. Inconceivable! What if they have to wait a week or two before they can decide in earnest whether they're giving Pete Buttigieg VA or UN ambassador? The country hangs in the balance. The people who have stoked the most outrageous fears about Donald Trump have been completely wrong. His words are outrageous, of course, and certainly his administration has engaged in some truly damaging acts with consequences to people and the planet, which will reverberate for years to come. The cruelty at the border, orphaning children, opening the Alaskan wilderness to logging, accelerating the transfer of wealth to the top, and of course, outright lying about coronavirus to save the stock market. But those in the media who have terrified millions with their Donald Trump ghost stories and murder mysteries, they destroyed the ability to tell the real story of the worst parts of the Trump administration. Not to mention that their unhinged conspiracy theories certainly turned off some of the voters that they might have won over with a different approach. Allow me to save you the suspense of what's going to happen next. Trump is going to tweet some more and do some more pretend legal actions that are laughably incompetent at best and possibly completely non-existent. He'll never fully admit defeat, which will, of course, enrage all the powers that be to no end. And, of course, he should concede. It would be good for the country if he did, but it's also not quite the same as the military-backed coup or outright authoritarian end of democracy that we've been repeatedly promised. Instead, when the time comes, he won't admit defeat, but he will leave. And it's very likely he'll go start his new media company where he'll continue to chirp from the sidelines to millions of his supporters who, by the way, will never believe that Joe Biden actually won fair and square. Of course, the media will do their best to convince these millions that the election results were accurate, quite the opposite of their role last time around when they spent hours and years trying to convince the public that the results of 2016 were not really fair or just thanks to Russian meddling. And I will admit, it is indeed a dangerous state of affairs that the media has so destroyed their credibility over years that tens of millions would trust the evidence-free word of the ridiculous Trump over the assurances of elite media. The failures of any of the wild conspiracies of the Trump era to actually materialize will just be one more nail in their coffin. And by that I mean, all the people who got Trump the most wrong will be greatly rewarded with big raises and primetime shows. And that is a truly scary story of Trump-era America.
So this is one of those takes that people would say simply has not aged well. And it's really important to go back to this video and really understand what exactly she was talking about. Again, she was trying to downplay the threats of Donald Trump, in which he was attempting to overturn the election results. Obviously, Joe Biden won the presidency, but he was trying to flip the votes for him. But it really wasn't just the U.S. Capitol thing that was sort of the big. It was the biggest thing, obviously, but it was sort of a lot of different things, right? So one of the aspects you have to remember is Trump was inciting his supporters to go and do this, to essentially put pressure with threats of violence towards congressional members. You got to remember, all of Congress was there at the Capitol building when they stormed it. They almost took it hostage, right? And he was inciting those people. He was getting them to do that by basically riling them up. When you say stuff like, the election was stolen and things like that, you're going to radicalize your supporters. And that was obviously what he was doing. Not only that, even after the U.S. Capitol storming happened, he was still basically doing this weird doublespeak where he would say in the first part of a tweet, this is wrong, but then in the others, this is what happens when, you steal an election and stuff like that. So he was clearly affirming and supporting what they were doing. That's why he ended up getting banned on Twitter. He wasn't even really banned on Twitter because of the event. The reason really that pushed him over was because he was essentially reaffirming those people and citing it again. It was insane. It's crazy. It's truly remarkable. This is real, historically important shit. But that wasn't the only thing. Remember recently that came out, Trump's phone call, the hour-long phone call with the Georgia Secretary of State, Brad Raffensperger. Remember? He's telling him to find, 11,000, however many votes it was, that he needed to flip. He was telling him to find votes. Think about that for a second. Think about what that means. The President of the United States of America is calling up a Secretary of State, the head of elections, of a singular state, and is telling them to fake votes to give him the win. Just that alone is so serious and unbelievable. That is serious. And so what happens with the Trump administration is, right, he throws so much shit at you. This was a good strategy for him. Throw so much shit at you and see, what is able to go past you, essentially, right? Like, everything, every news cycle, every day, there's something new. So it's so hard to keep up with one singular thing. And so everything gets minimized. But we can't allow something like that to actually be minimized. It's insane. And there's more. Remember that Trump was telling Pence, Mike Pence, the vice president, when it comes to counting the electoral votes, has a virtually entirely ceremonial role. All they do is open up the envelope and read it out. They don't have any other role outside of that. And so Congress has the ability to object, right? He was trying to get Mike Pence. He was telling Mike Pence, and there were other Republicans trying to do this too, telling him to invalidate electors that Trump didn't want from states like Arizona, Georgia, Pennsylvania, these states, so that he could give himself the win. Think about how serious that is. Let that sink in. He's telling the vice president, his own vice president, to cheat the election to give him the win. Think about how serious that is. That's authoritarian fascist shit 101. Okay, and he's doing it in multiple different areas, inciting his supporters to do a diet coup, right? Calling up the Georgia Secretary of State saying, hey man, I need you to find 12,000 votes to overturn the election victory for myself. Telling his vice president that he chose, that is supposed to be loyal to him, hey, give me the win. Give me the win. Mike Pence, luckily, thank God, Mike Pence is like, no, I'm not going to do that shit. But imagine if he would, right? And the idea about, a Trump military coup, I'm sure he would have done it if he had the power, but he simply doesn't. People wouldn't go along with it. So he exhausted all options. I'm sure he was thinking about it. He was talking about it with people, bouncing it off of people's heads, really talking about it. But he doesn't really have the power to do it. People wouldn't go along with it. It wouldn't work. So I'm sure if he had the power to do it, I guarantee you he would do that shit. Okay, when you're someone like him with the threat of you're probably going to prison or you're really going to be in trouble, you're going to exhaust every option you can. So just because somebody isn't able to do something like a military coup doesn't mean you downplay the attempts of a coup. It doesn't make any sense. He tried to do all these things. Those three things alone are crazy. Calling up the Georgia Secretary of State, telling him to cheat, fix an election. Think about what that means. Okay, and then telling Mike Pence to give him the win when he didn't win the election, and then inciting his supporters to go do a diet coup at the U.S. Capitol, put pressure on congressional members. It's batshit crazy. That is extremely fascistic, authoritarian. That is all of that looking in the rearview mirror. It is the exact same thing, and the idea of downplaying this stuff is so stupid. But this take has gotten stupider with time because all of this stuff has came out, right? There were reports, I believe at the time that this came out, maybe, of him having the phone call talking to Secretary of State. Because I think Raffensperger came out saying that, but the actual audio came out recently. So this is serious shit. This is not, again, dude, this is not some elementary stuff that's being, overplayed by the media. This is real stuff, and I just remember reacting to this segment, the smugness that Krystal Ball has, the douchebagness. It's disgusting and repulsive. It really is disgusting and repulsive. I don't know what the hell she was thinking. But it's gotten more bizarre with time because of all the stuff that has came out from it. This is definitely something that should certainly hurt her credibility. And it was such a bizarre and unnecessary take that I was really shocked by. But the real question we need to ask is, why did she do this segment? Because I'm genuinely curious. Is it because The Hill is a conservatively owned outlet? I know they're supposed to be centrist and non-biased, but I believe it's owned by a conservative. Is that why it is? Is it Sagar? Is it money? Is it being anti-media? What is the reason? That is the most important question to ask here, because it really is a reflection. This is a reflection on her as a commentator, her thoughts, her beliefs. And you really got to be careful with somebody like this, man. That's really worrisome when somebody is down to say something so downright stupid, so downright dumb. It's scary, you know what I mean? Like, you have to question motives, and you really have to question, why did they do it? You know what I mean? It's really important to do so. So I don't know why. There are some, there are some beliefs of, it's conservatively owned outlet. Maybe she was pressured. Maybe she's just stupid. Maybe she's an asshole. I don't know which one it is. But especially if she just tries to hide this under the rug and doesn't, respond to this. It's been less than 60 days, and this has aged worse than any of the takes I've ever seen in my life. This is such an insanely horrific take. If you say, like, somebody's going to win an election, then they lose, you can get laughed at. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, it was a dumb take. Maybe it wasn't dumb. You're just wrong. You get laughed at, you move on, right? It doesn't necessarily hurt your credibility. It might hurt your credibility in terms of the realm of predicting who wins. But this is not only do I find this to be sort of an indictment of her own, commentating and her thoughts, I find it to be an indictment of her entirely as a person. I find it to be really insane. So her credibility is taking a really big hit with this. And I don't know if she's going to respond to this, but this is a really bad look. Trump tried everything he possibly could to try to be as authoritarian as he could, to try to overturn the election results. Think about all of the things that he went through. It was a step-by-step process, trying to stop the vote, then trying to go through the legal system, get it to the Supreme Court, get the Supreme Court justices that he appointed to overturn the election for him. Super fascist. Literally, this is textbook definition. It's like looking at a dictionary of fascist, basically. Telling his VP, a role he doesn't have, to basically say, though, I'm not going to count those electors and I'm going to give him his victory. Fascist 101. Calling up the Georgia Secretary of State, telling him to fake votes. Fascist 101. It's disgusting that Krystal Ball made this video. And I really do believe that she seriously needs to be held to account for this, because this is that egregious of a take.